Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next part of the crawler build. And as promised, we have time lapse. Why am I not getting any sort of audio from my end? Oh, yes, I am. I'm just not looking at the right section. My bad. So, yeah, this was a bit of a interesting build for me, and as you can see, I copied over part of the tread so that I could try and get a better idea on what the connection points were like. And you'll notice that I actually screwed up later on. Uh, and you'll notice in a bit that I have to remove one of the connection ports. Um, but actually, you can see I just realized that I had the fluid and electric connector all from the wrong part. So as you can see, I'm mostly just trying to hook up everything at this point. And it was during this that I realized that I need to reevaluate how high the units need to be, or rather how high they can be. Because I noticed that there's some rather interesting problems in terms of deck heights and making sure that stuff doesn't collide between the units. And you'll notice later that I kind of realized that, so I needed to change how the swivel point looked. So as you can see here, I'm starting to actually create the deck or the crew deck on this one, and I used just the door frame to try and keep the water out. I haven't gotten a chance to test it yet, but I'm hoping it works fairly well. And you can see I'm just doing some quick testing. I do a lot of testing just to make sure that everything's working correctly, and as you can see, it is turning just fine. So every once in a while you'll see I spawn in the creation just to try and get everything to work. And I do a couple of kind of funky things to make stuff look pretty. But, So the first kind of important thing to touch upon, I suppose, is that you'll notice that I've got two hinges there instead of just one. And that's so that, again, I've got the proper amount of or all the connections that I need, so both air and the gas. And you'll see that I'm starting to hook up those lines, and I don't hide these lines or these pipes because I feel like that would detract from the visual aesthetics actually. So I've got a lot of the pipes visual or visibly shown in sections, and that's just to make it look a bit nicer in my opinion, because I kind of like that industrial feel to it. And these are also crew. This is a crew deck, so this is not what passengers and the scientists aboard are going to be able to normally see. So it doesn't need to look pretty or aesthetically pleasing. It just needs to be functional and also able to be maintained. Now you notice that I've actually got this third pipeline, and I decided that in the incredibly far off chance that I decide I also want to be able to transport power from the crawler, or the tread into the actual main body, that's what that line is for. Now you notice I'm starting to actually do some of the visual aesthetics for this, and I had some interesting issues with this. And you'll notice that I later have to go back and I revise this so many times. I had this clear vision in my head on how I wanted the front of this unit to look, and I still didn't get anywhere close to what I was looking for. But I think it looks kind of nice, at least for what is needed for what this unit is. Obviously, I might go back and modify it as I need or as you guys want me to, because again, this is a community build, so... but I was kind of looking for this overhang kind of look to it, and it didn't really work too well, in my opinion. You'll notice that I've got this also kind of weird slope. Yeah, that goes away. That completely and totally goes away. So, the idea that I have... So, the tread... This connection point is important for two reasons. One, it's a point for the actual tread to be connected, but also it's a manual, it's a place that the crewmen should be able to go and sort of do any sort of work that they need to do. And that's why I've got this camera that I just put in. I actually put in another camera, or I actually moved that camera at a later date because, and you kind of saw earlier, I have like a I don't even remember what it's called. It's the I like to think of it as the throttle, but it's not really that. It's a numeric control. But you'll see if you remember earlier, I put down one of those, and that's a turn control room. So for manually doing some turning, and you'll see that I'm starting to put up some glass. I had the weird so in my head because I'm partially basing off how this works as based off of some of the cruise lines that I've gone on because I really my family really enjoys going on cruises. We don't do it super often, especially since I get seasick rather easily, sadly. But I rather enjoy going on cruises because they've got some really cool stuff. And something that I always enjoy if a cruise line has it is these observation decks where you can just kind of like it's indoors, but you've got like glass looking out, kind of in front, and you can just kind of sit and watch essentially the where you're going. And that's what this idea is, and this is going to be on both sides of the crawler above the front left and front right tread, and it's just going to be an observation deck really that you'll be able to kind of look out. And I also decided, oh, there's that control room that I was talking about. I apologize also that the video seems very quick. It's actually at more than 25 or 24 frames per second, which is a standard. The video editor that I was using is able to deal with time lapse, but it's not able to deal with the time lapse that's at 4 frames per second. It's able to deal with the time lapse at 6 frames per second. So it's running actually a bit faster than it normally would. So that's why stuff looks kind of funky. So you'll see that I put some monitors up there, and that I'll kind of explain that later on as we continue on. But actually, I'll might as well explain it in just 1 second. So you'll notice that I'm putting in some batteries here. This specific unit will be absolutely covered in batteries at a later date. It's not just yet, but I've put in some emergency reserve batteries, and that's them right there. And then I'm adding in an access door, which is using this sliding door that I'm not consistent on which type of door I use, so that's why you'll see sliding doors and you'll see the actually rotating doors. So, but anyways, the camera that you can actually see just right above there, and the 2 monitors that you saw up in the observation deck, that is for, oh, you can see me wiring up the connections to allow for the door to work. But the camera system right there is that I really, really enjoy it when cruise lines or just any place really has some sort of camera system so you can actually watch some of the behind the scenes stuff going on, but have it be kind of unintrusive. So that's what that's for. It's just a camera that looks down at the actual hinge that the people in the observation deck can look and kind of see actually where the tread is aimed at. And if there are people there, they can kind of watch them do whatever they need to do. So again, this is part of the manual control room I'm just setting up here. And I've got 2 cameras. One of them is actually being fed through the tread itself, and that's just a emergency visual indicator in case something's going wrong, and so that the person in the turn control room can check up on that. And the other is a camera down below. I don't think I've put it in yet, but it's a camera down below that is pointed forward so that they can see what actually the terrain looks like going forward. And I apologize that it's kind of quiet. I was trying to contact a friend of mine that is actually a music producer to get some music for this video, and I still have yet to hear back from them as of recording. I should just double check that. Yeah, I have not heard back from them as of yet, but hopefully in the next video we will have some music just playing in the background for any sort of quiet sections. So you can see I'm starting to build essentially the main electric for this unit, and you'll see that I've got this glass up here, and that's because of a rather weird idea that or rather weird thought that I had. And you can see I've got this the circuit breaker bank. Is that batteries heat up, and this is not something people normally think of, but batteries heat up, especially if they're being charged and discharged very often. And normally that, like in Stormworks, that's not actually a thing that occurs, but it's something that I would like to be able to visually kind of indicate it's being dealt with. So that's why I've got those glass panels, and I'm kind of separating the actual area that people will be in versus the outside area, and that's because I'm going to be having that essentially filled with water. And that's going to be just some coolant water essentially, and it's not going to be. I don't think it's going to be the same water supply that's going into the tread itself, but it's going to be a secondary water supply. And you'll notice that I also had some lights. They were slightly different lights. They were regular lights and then RGB lights. The RGB lights are to indicate status, like if there's an emergency or something, they'll turn like red or something. And I've also got some, just kind of some stuff for show as well on top of everything else, just like the water. That's what those two electric motors are there for. They're supposed to be indicating how the tread turns. They don't do anything. They're just there for show, realistically. And something that really drives me nuts, and I'm watching this back, and I still can't for the life of me remember, there's a little toggle button that's right next to the door to the control room. It's this inner of the two. I distinctly remember placing it down for a very specific reason, and I still can't for the life of me remember why I put it down. At this point, I still cannot remember. I really wish I had written it down or something. But yeah, eventually I will remember, and we'll actually figure out what that's for. So, and you can see I'm starting to actually do some kind of visual work. I was getting kind of bored of just doing the same build, because I was like, I'm getting kind of flustered. I'm getting tired. I don't know what I need to build. So at this point, I start doing some coloring. And you notice I've colored this kind of a dark brown and then a lighter brown on the inside, because this is keep in mind that it's underwater, but it's still going to be a really heavy thing. The entire weight of the crawler is on 4 treads. Those treads need to be able to turn. What works really well for that is grease. So that's what the darker coloration is that's supposed to be just a visual indication of grease. And again, I really enjoyed having like aesthetic looks or unique aesthetics to how the builds like these are and have more realistic. And of course, you would have grease for that. You'd also have colored lines on the ground for the crew, so that they would be able to tell, like, if they're not normally in the tread, or if they're kind of not thinking, they can just follow the lines. They can follow the corresponding colored lines, and they would be able to find where they need to go for that unit. The yellow is obviously electric, and blue is the mechanical in this sort of situation. And okay. So I knew that I didn't remember when I started this part, so you'll see I kind of have to redo some of the underbody of that giant curvature. This was possibly I think it is actually possibly the most painful part of this entire build that I did. And that is, it occurred to me that I've essentially got a small bit of a circle that needs to turn, so I need to build the rest of the circle. And this is my very painful attempt at trying to figure out how to make that circle smooth. And this took almost what felt like an hour on my end, honestly. You'll notice that there's a couple of weird jumps every once in a while. That's me. Typically, I've recorded this in the span of like 4 videos, so that's what those small jumps are. If you notice, like, I suddenly jump position. Also, if I just pause, I've got music playing in the background, and I needed to change the song or whatever. So I'm at this point, I'm mostly just trying to figure out what's going on. And actually, in this section, all the pauses are me looking at a voxel circle generator that I was using to try and get a better idea on how to do the circle. Didn't work well because I still wanted the pipes to be visible. So yeah, that's me checking it right there. So yeah, this was possibly the most painful part of the entire build. The entire build, and that's saying something too, because just looking at some of those like electrical connections was driving my brain crazy. So yeah, this is me just trying to figure out how to smooth it all, and I am more. I truly cannot describe how incredibly. Well, actually, that's not a good way of putting it. I really, really, really want you guys to tell me how to do this because I'm sure, I'm almost certain somebody is out there has done this specific sort of or been in this sort of situation. And if you have, please let me know and how you dealt with it because I kind of want this to look nice. So this is my kind of painful attempt at trying to get this to look moderately decent. So I'll just shut up now. Just you can watch me in agonizing pain doing this. So yeah, now I start to rebuild the underbody and like the actual curve of the underbody. Now that I've figured out the actual circuit, rotating bit of that. And it was actually during that I realized I didn't have some sort of a method of doing the attachment to the tread, and that's part of what this section is right here. This is actually me just building a room, but this is right here is the logic for the connection. And I decided to go ahead. And I've still got the mirror on, as you can see. I decided to go ahead and have both. As you can see, I'm kind of setting stuff up correctly. So you have to disengage both sides in order for the disconnect to occur on the actual crawler's side. And as you can see, the logic's just starting to get absolutely insane. And this is, I still have not finished the building for this, partially because I'm kind of starting to go crazy doing it, because I've been just focusing on it kind of one tracked almost to a degree, and I kind of want some input at this point on what I should, how I should continue from here. But as you can see, I try to make it kind of visually pleasing with like a slope. It didn't quite work as well as I wanted it to, but I'll live with it. Oh yeah, and here's where I realized, oh, I've got a ton of empty space that I don't have anything for, and this entire thing is probably going to be hollow and not filled with water. So that's why I put those weights in there. And I'm probably going to be putting additional weights in other locations just to make sure that the entire thing doesn't like float, like just want to float up to the surface of the water. So I redid the door connector just so that it's on the outside as well as the inside, or the button for the connector. So that's if I need to like do that, for example. And it's important because I noticed that I didn't have any of the actual logic for those two inner doors to work. I think that was a cut that I just did, or a jump that I just did. So this is me kind of expanding the room, and I think this is where I start. Yes. So uh, I started to kind of put in some tanks here as kind of a holding area or a liquid holding area for the tread or the actual tread itself. And I noticed that I completely and totally screwed up the spacing there because I wanted there to be kind of a singular block of space between the two rows of pipes, or columns of pipes, I suppose is a better way of putting it. So yeah, you can see me putting them up in there like that. Now you notice that I put a one way in there, and that's because my thought process is that for something like this, you would want to have a import, like an input into the tank system, and then an output. So that's what the top is, the input, not as visually shown by the two flow valves, and there's going to be two more one-way valves on the bottom, which is going to be the output. Now, in watching this video back, I think I put that dial upside down. I'll have to double check that later. So this is me starting to kind of work on the passenger deck area. So you can see that I'm starting to kind of put in like a connection, and I put in a door right here. And you'll notice that this is the first part of actual workshop stuff I used, which is a rather handy little that's right. I think it's optimistics. Let me just double check that. It is about 80% certain that is optimistics controller there, but it's a password controller. I'm about 80% certain that is optimistics, but I can, and I'll put a link down in the description if you want to use it. But it's a really handy little password thing that password controller that I rather enjoy, actually. I think it's a really well done kind of idea. So that's what I was just working on, is setting up those and then having a button set up so that you have a way of getting from the crew deck into the passenger deck without having to press a button to get in. See, I'm just kind of starting to enclose that area. And you notice at one point in time that there was actually two screens, and I realized that I didn't need this inner screen because there's no reason for needing to put in a password just to get to the passenger deck. I think we're almost to the end of the video itself. Oh, that's right. I put in some some kind of airlock doors for the hinge connector, or the tread connection area. And this is me just kind of doing some enclosing work. So now we actually get to see what this is. Hey, there we go. There we go. All right. So if we open up the door for the grand reveal, this is the current setup for the tread. Now, I did do a tiny bit of stuff off camera because I noticed I completely and totally screwed up some connections, specifically for this lamp, or searchlight right here. And this is the camera I was talking about. If we come over here, you'll see the... Oh god, every single time I look at this, my eyes just hurt. It just looks so terrible in my opinion. So if we go through here, this is again going to be connecting into the tread itself. Climb up the ladder. You can see, put on my flashlight, you can see kind of where the grease is supposed to be. And you can see the passenger camera. And that's actually supposed to tilt down, but there's not being supplied any power right now. So, same, actually there is, yeah, no, there's not actually any lights in there, so, and that's way too bright. So, as you can see, that's going to go farther down into the unit and eventually into the rest of the lower parts of the crawler. So if we go into the electrical room, I'm just going to turn in local control, turn motors, and then the passenger peripherals. And the passenger peripherals will turn on the should. Yeah, that's now aimed down at the actual hinge. And if we go up to the passenger deck in just a moment, you'll see that that is now fully working. So this is the toggle button. I still have no clue what it was supposed to go to originally. Oh, I still didn't wire that up. Whoops, daisies. This is supposed to turn on these two monitors, but apparently I still failed to hook that up. So I'll have to do that as soon as I'm done recording and just kind of hook that up off camera. That's my bad. Now, why is this not working? Oh dear. This is important why you check stuff, people. I'm not sure why that... I could have sworn I went over to that area at one point in time as well. So yeah, this is the tread disconnect, and there's one identical on the other side. Actually, let's go on this side, just because I kept using that side, and I want to double check that this side works as well now, because I'm getting paranoid. You've got some equipment, or diving equipment and firefighting equipment. Should the unexpected happen and you have some sort of issue on the passenger deck, that's what these two are for. So push that. That works just fine, and you can see that the camera is working. You'll notice it's also in night mode right now. I have it set up so that when the lights are off, it goes into the night vision mode, and when the lights are on, it turns off the light vision mode. So I can really quickly... Oh, this is flipped, isn't it? Oh, dear lord. Okay, that's something I'll have to double check. That's something I'll have to fix later. Good to know. I had not realized I had screwed that one up. So yeah, if I turn that on, we head back up here. You'll notice that now the interior is looking just fine. Or rather, it's no longer in night mode, and this is kind of a little nice visual viewport for the passengers. So that's the current update to the for Unit 1C, as this unit is going to be referred to as now, for one connection, or the first connection, or first deck connection. There we go. I'm glad I finally got those words out. So, wow, I'm amazed that that's drained practically any battery. So yeah, that's just going to one of these batteries, and since these are all linked into parallel, they all drain normally. Well, I say parallel, but there's no real way to distinctly say parallel or in series when it comes to this game, sadly. Oh, these tanks are empty. Interesting. Either that or I failed to hook that one up. But yeah, so that is where we currently are. Let me actually just fix those two issues well on camera. Let's go electric. Yeah, son of a gun. There it is right there. Door open, close. That I know is all fine. This apparently I never hooked up. Oh, I remember now why I didn't hook that up. I'm gonna actually disconnect that. It's because I wanted to have the tank level of like all of these combined, because they don't really drain equally to my knowledge. Let me also make sure that this monitor is also working correctly. So that is a 1x1 monitor. Now, I have no way of knowing which way is up or down. Like, if it's mirrored or not, honestly. So I'm just going to hope that I put this in correctly, and we'll find out in just a moment. This is legitimately how I do a lot of this, and that's why you saw me keep spawning this thing in, is just so I actually make sure I don't know, say forget something. Because I did that a couple times, as you noticed. This is being a great example of such. So we need composites going into, yeah, Optimistics, customizable 1x1 4-digit code microcontroller. So this is the that's the full name of it, and I will be putting a link down into the description for the workshop page of this one, because if you need a, I think this is the one that's like used by Mr. N Jersey, I think, actually. Don't quote me on that, but I think this is the one that's being that's the one that's used for it. It's very nice. It's quick and easy setup, and I think you can also change the color, but I might be wrong about that. So let's go ahead and double check to make sure I've done this all correctly. And Lord knows I've probably forgotten something somewhere. You'll notice that I put this big platform in the back so it just doesn't tip over completely. So go in here. And you'll notice that I do for the, oh, that's interesting. I'll have to fix that. Come on. There we go. Oh yeah, that's better. So that works. Let me just double check this one. Yeah, that looks like that's correct as well. Cool. So yeah, that all works. But you'll notice that I'm somewhat inconsistent about the push buttons versus toggle buttons. I will be fixing that off camera before the next recording, or the next video, I suppose. So yeah, that's the current status of the crawler build. And hopefully by next episode we'll have a better idea on how the passenger, the observation deck will look. Because you notice this is about actually the full height of a unit, which is kind of concerning, but also kind of impressive, just how much space is taken up and how little space is being taken up at the same time. Both in terms of empty space and also just trying to cram everything in together. So yeah, as always, this has been the crawler build. If you enjoyed this, please leave a like and a comment, especially since this is a great time, since I'm in the middle of building a unit. If you want any sort of things being added into this specific unit, or if you have any sort of suggestions, or you have something pre-built up on the workshop that you want me to add in, now's a great time to let me know. This unit is not supposed to have any sort of like no living quarters or no living quarters and no accommodations for the passengers, so like restrooms or restaurants or anything like that. And I've actually got a idea for a restaurant unit that I'm really excited to start on, but we'll get there once we get there. And I did notice that I kind of screwed up something. I did say at the beginning, I said that I would make a unit that was going to be usable for all 4 connections for the treads. As you can see, what with this, that is kind of out the door, so now this will be just a template for the front 2, and I'll rebuild this practically from scratch for the rear one. And that's probably actually going to connect, the rear one's probably going to connect up with the restaurant, actually. But yeah, so if you have any sort of suggestions, let me know. And as always, if you enjoyed this and you want to get notified when I put up a new video on the progress of the crawler, please, please, please hit that subscribe button and that bell icon, so that way you can get notified every single time I post out a video, both for this series and my brain fart, Scrap Mechanics Survival Series, which is the other series that I'm running on the channel. And I'm probably going to start ramping up how many videos I do per week. I'm probably going to start changing it to 2 weeks, or 2 videos per week, just that way we can get some more stuff out. But the updates for this might change on how much is actually occurring between videos. But yeah, let me know what you think of that. Let me know what you think of the color scheme as well. I really want this color on the kind of on this slope, but I'm not super enthralled with this color. I think it's kind of a nice shade, but I'm not super enthralled by it. So originally I put this in kind of like as an like a darker section because it doesn't need to be. You don't want to draw your eyes to it. You want to draw your eyes to the upper section. So that's why I've colored it this darker color. It's a bit like Disney's Go Away Green or Look Away Green. No, it is Go Away Green. That's right. But they've got a couple of other colors like that. But that's what that's for. So if you got any suggestions, please let me know. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.